Chapter 1. Insert coin to begin. The arcade was always cold in the mornings. Not cold like winter. Cold like wires and static and machines not yet awake. Carter liked it best this way, quiet, humming, still stretching off the dust of night. Neon nights didn't open until noon, but he always came in early, sometimes 2 hours early. He told people it was to stay ahead of the maintenance schedule. Truth was, he liked the feeling of walking between rows of sleeping cabinets before anyone else did. He knelt beside the Pac-Man machine, screwdriver in one hand, flashlight in the other, half of his torso swallowed by the open hatch in the back. Somewhere in the guts of the thing, a loose wire was shorting the soundboard, causing Pac-Man to emit an ungodly screech every time he swallowed a power pellet. Carter found it oddly endearing. He liked things that didn't quite work right. He felt kin to them. A cassette player crackled softly on the nearby workbench, playing one of his grandfather's old mixtapes. Take on Me warbled under layers of hiss and tape degradation. He had it memorized by now. Every skip, every dip. It comforted him the way old jeans or a broken-in hoodie might comfort someone else. Carter was tall and lean in a way that made his shoulders look perpetually a little too narrow for his height. His brown hair was tousled, always, as if he'd just taken off a baseball cap he never wore. Smudges of circuit grease and dust traced across the side of his neck and along his forearms. The machines might as well have marked him as one of their own. He screwed the panel shut, gave the machine a gentle pat like it had done a good job surviving, and flipped it on. "Waka, waka, waka!" "Perfect," he murmured to no one. Then he turned, blinked, and saw the note. It was folded neatly and placed just above the coin slot. Thin, cream-colored paper. Not one of Tia's neon sticky notes she used to yell at him about cleaning out the damn vending machine guts already. This one was different, fancier, written in black ink with even spacing and flourishes on the letters. "You fixed the Pac-Man sound bug. You're magic." He stared at it, then stared at the machine. He looked around the empty arcade, half expecting someone to pop out of the claw machine and shout, "Gotcha!" But nothing stirred except for the gentle flicker of marquee lights and the whir of the ceiling fans. Carter furrowed his brow and read it again. Magic. No one used words like that for what he did. It was soldering and rewiring, not sorcery. Still, he didn't throw it away. He folded it carefully, tucked it into the back pocket of his jeans, and told himself it was probably Tia being weird. Tia. Carter called out 2 hours later, flipping up the service counter door. "Did you leave me a note this morning?" The manager looked up from the prize shelf she was reorganizing, again, with a plush Pikachu in one hand and a plastic sword in the other. She raised an eyebrow. "Did it involve threatening to take a crowbar to your ankles if you don't fix the air hockey scoreboard?" "No." "Then it wasn't me." She dropped the Pikachu into the $500 ticket bin and added, "New guy must have done it." Carter frowned. "New guy?" "You know." She waved vaguely toward the ceiling. "Owner. Logan something. He's not around much, but he's been emailing me about restoring the cabinets instead of replacing them. Even said to give you a raise." Carter blinked. "Seriously?" "Yeah," said, and I quote, "The technician is essential to keeping the soul of the arcade intact." She snorted. "Told you he was weird, but generous. Let him be weird." Carter didn't know what to say. In his 3 years of working there, the previous owners had never even remembered his name. He fixed machines. He did it well, but people rarely noticed. That night, he stayed late. Not to work, just to see. The arcade closed at 10, but Carter lingered behind, doing pretend cleanup duties, dusting off joysticks, straightening empty candy wrappers left behind in booths, fiddling with volume knobs. The place felt different now, like someone else was watching, like he wasn't just working in the shadows anymore. At 10:41 p.m., just as he was about to power down the Galaga cabinet, he saw another note. Folded again. Same paper, same handwriting. "Does this make me the ghost and you the power pellet?" Carter squinted. That was oddly specific, cheesy but kind of clever, and intimate in a strange, nerdy way. He rubbed the back of his neck and looked around again, heart quietly thudding against his ribs. The arcade was silent except for the soft buzz of electricity and his own shallow breath. No one. No movement. He leaned against the cabinet and folded the note slowly, more careful this time. He didn't put it in his pocket. He held it in his hand the way someone might hold a feather or a flame, like it might disappear if he blinked. The next morning, Carter showed up even earlier than usual. He didn't admit, not even to himself, that he hoped another note would be waiting. Instead, he focused on the skee-ball machine. A screw had come loose inside the scoring sensor, and the mechanism refused to tally any points over 30. He lay on his back, halfway under the ramp, trying not to inhale years of lint and cotton candy residue. When he crawled out 40 minutes later, sweaty and victorious, he found a neatly folded napkin perched on the game's wood paneling. You crawl under machines like you're defusing a bomb. It's very heroic. 9.5. His laugh startled even himself. Carter laughed so rarely, it almost sounded foreign in his own ears. That's when he realized he'd been smiling more this week than he had in months. He told Tia about the napkin in a casual, offhand way. She raised a brow and popped her gum. So the mystery deepens? Want to bet he's been watching you? I'd rather not think about that, Carter muttered, ears burning. It's creepy. Maybe, Tia said with a shrug. Maybe not. Maybe it's just a shy guy with a crush. Carter almost choked on his own breath. A what? Tia grinned and leaned back on the prize counter. Don't look so surprised. You're cute in that brooding, but can fix a pinball machine with one hand while quoting the Goonies kind of way. I've never quoted the Goonies. Exactly. Mystery hot guys love a challenge. Carter tried to brush it off. He told himself it was nothing. A prank, a one-time thing that accidentally turned into 3 or 4 or 5 things. But he couldn't help it. Every machine he approached, he checked first. Every drawer he opened, every coin slot he peeked into. The notes kept coming. Not every day, not every machine, but just often enough to feel deliberate. Sometimes they were funny. Confession, I once rage quit Donkey Kong at level 2. Don't tell the machines. They still respect me. Sometimes they were oddly poetic. Your hands move like you're playing a symphony no one else can hear. One night, a torn page from a vintage arcade manual simply said, "You belong here." By the end of the week, Carter's pocket was full of folded papers. Some were worn from being opened too many times. Others still smelled faintly of cologne, subtle, earthy, expensive. He didn't know why this stranger was writing to him. He didn't know what Logan looked like, but he was starting to feel like he knew him anyway. Or maybe, like Logan knew him. Not the surface stuff. Not the awkward silences or the way Carter forgot people's birthdays or the fact that he preferred solder fumes to bar chatter, but the quiet things, the soft spaces between who he was and how he lived. That night, Carter left a note of his own. He didn't sign it, didn't try to be clever. He just folded a small square of paper and slipped it under the Galaga cabinet he'd just repaired. 3 words, simple, curious. Who are you? And when he left, he looked back once, not at the door, but at the machines, and wondered if one of them might answer. Chapter 2, Maintenance Mode. Carter was officially losing it. He stood in the dim back room of Neon Nights, the one with the flickering ceiling light and the smell of warm plastic and floor polish, staring at another folded piece of paper. Same vintage stock. Same looping, graceful penmanship, like whoever wrote it had never scribbled anything in a rush their entire life. He hadn't even started working yet. He'd only stepped in to grab his tools, sip lukewarm coffee, and maybe fix the broken coin sensor in the asteroids machine. But the note was already waiting. Resting neatly atop the ancient metal toolbox he kept locked even though no one ever went near it. You labeled the wires under the Galaga cabinet. That's kindness. Don't let anyone tell you it's just habit. Carter sat down slowly, the paper trembling slightly between his fingers. His pulse fluttered, almost annoyed with how warm he felt reading it. He was trying not to get used to these compliments, these little truths, handwritten and hidden away like treasure. He read it again. Kindness. No one used that word for him, not even his grandfather, who used to mutter, "Good job, kid," in the same tone he used to curse at broken rewinder machines. It was such a simple thing, labeling the wires, but someone had noticed and appreciated it. Carter leaned back in the rickety chair, staring up at the water-stained ceiling tiles, letting the quiet hum of machines and low arcade buzz fill the silence around him. The mornings belonged to him. No customers, no noise, Just soft golden light spilling through the tinted windows and the smell of yesterday's popcorn still clinging to the air. His hands were calloused and slightly burned from years of handling soldering irons, but they shook as he picked up a pen from the drawer and scrawled something, anything, on a piece of his own paper. He paused, tore it up, started again. Finally, he wrote, "Who are you?" and folded it into a square. He tucked it into the coin slot of Galaga. The first time he'd fallen in love with broken things, he was 10 years old. His grandfather ran a VHS rental store that barely scraped by even in the early 2000s. While other kids played outside or begged for new game consoles, Carter sat behind the counter, rewinding tapes by hand and listening to old radio shows. It was there, under the blinking fluorescent lights of Real Rewind Video, that he learned how to fix things. Tapes, remote controls, microwave ovens. It wasn't just that he was good at it. It was that it made him feel calm, useful, like he had a place. His grandfather, a grizzled man with more years behind him than ahead, didn't praise much. But every once in a while, he'd ruffle Carter's hair and say, "You've got the hands for it. World needs more people like you, folks who don't throw shit away just 'cause it's busted." Carter had never forgotten that. Even now, in a new century where everything got replaced instead of repaired, he found peace in the slow process of fixing what was left behind. That night, Carter stayed long after closing, lost in the satisfying quiet of maintenance mode. He was halfway through reseating the wiring in a forgotten dig-dug machine when he heard the unmistakable clack of change hitting a token tray. He straightened, tools still in hand, and peeked over the top of the machine. "Dude," said a voice, "you always crouch like that? Looks like you're proposing to the motherboard." Carter blinked. Standing there, holding a greasy paper bag and a half-drunk soda, was a guy in his early 20s with spiky black hair and a hoodie that said Gamer Fuel in neon letters. His sneakers lit up at the soles every time he shifted weight. A tattoo peeked from the edge of his collar. "I'm not used to seeing anyone here this late," Carter said cautiously, wiping his hands on his shirt. "Jonah," the guy said, flashing a grin. "I'm here every night. You just never notice because you're usually like wrist deep in a CRT monitor." Carter raised an eyebrow. "You one of Tia's midnight regulars?" "Midnight and proud," Jonah said, tossing his trash in a bin and hopping up to sit on a nearby table. "Came here to beat the high score on Space Invaders again. But honestly, I was more curious about the note guy." Carter froze. "What?" Jonah smirked. "Oh, come on, you've got like a secret admirer or something. It's all anyone's whispering about on the Discord." "There's a Discord?" Jonah wiggled his eyebrows. "Oh yeah, Neon Knights lore is hot these days, especially the whole mysterious note lever is actually the owner theory." Carter's heart did a little flip. "That's just speculation." "Is it?" Jonah jumped down, suddenly serious. "You don't look like the kind of guy who flirts back, but you keep coming in early, staying late, you're obsessed." Carter didn't answer. He didn't have to. Jonah waved him off with a grin. "Hey, no judgment. Just don't let him ghost you, or do. Could be hot." He was gone before Carter could reply, leaving behind a faint echo of amusement and the scent of nacho cheese dust. The next night, Carter arrived to find a small thermos resting on top of the Pac-Man machine. Not just a plain one. This was vintage, silver, with a Star Trek sticker peeling from the side. A note was wrapped around it with twine. "Hot cocoa. Homemade, might be a little sweet, but I thought you could use it." L. Carter swallowed thickly. He opened the thermos and took a sip. It was delicious, creamy, with a hint of cinnamon, comfort in a cup. He sat down on the floor beside the machine and drank it slowly, heart pounding louder with every sip. So it was Logan. He had a name now, a real one, and it tasted like cinnamon and cocoa and things Carter didn't know how to want. The notes kept coming, more thoughtful, more teasing, more intimate in a quiet way. "You seem like someone who doesn't say much. That's okay. I'm good at listening. You fixed the light strip in the pinball lane. I noticed. I always notice." One night, tucked inside the prize redemption drawer, he found a bag of spicy chips and a new note. "Careful, these bite back. Just like you." Carter laughed out loud and had to muffle it with his sleeve when a couple walked by on their way out. He was falling. Slowly. Quietly. But it was happening. And the worst part? He hadn't even seen Logan's face. That same week, Carter did something terrifying. He wrote another note back, a real one this time. He stayed late after closing, cleaned the Galaga cabinet until it gleamed, and placed his own folded paper in the coin return tray. You were right. I don't say much, but I've been reading everything, and I think maybe I don't want this to be just notes anymore. He hesitated, then added one last line. I'm ready when you are. He left the arcade that night with his heart in his throat. Outside, the city hummed softly, not loud or impatient, just steady. And for the first time in a long while, Carter walked home not because he had nowhere else to be, but because he wanted to see where this was going. Chapter 3, Player 2 has entered the game. The arcade was alive. For the first time in months, maybe years, neon nights buzzed with an energy Carter hadn't seen since he first started working there. Tia had gone all out for the retro tournament night. Banners made of pixelated 8-bit lettering hung over the prize counter. Every machine gleamed like it had been freshly unboxed in the 80s, and the scent of popcorn mixed with the electric bite of overworked wiring filled the air like nostalgia itself. Carter stood in the back, arms crossed over his tool apron, pretending to check the Galaga machine again, even though he'd already triple-tested it. His nerves weren't about the machines anymore. They were about the note. He found it that morning, tucked gently into the spare change drawer beneath the token dispenser. Hope you'll stay for the tournament. I'll be watching. It was the first time Logan had referenced something in real time, a moment that hadn't happened yet. Not a thank you. Not a compliment. A future. A possibility. The note was still folded in Carter's chest pocket, right over his heart. For 3 days straight, Carter had done nothing but prep. Reseat wiring, adjust CRT brightness, test joystick sensitivity, replace worn rubber buttons with fresh vintage grade ones. Tia had somehow hunted down from a collector in New Jersey. He'd even redone the LED strip inside the claw machine just because it annoyed him. He didn't know what Logan looked like, but he knew the shape of him now, at least a little. Kind, observant, witty, in the kind of way that made you laugh in your throat and not out loud. Thoughtful enough to leave cocoa on cold nights and write compliments in fountain pen ink. He'd built this image in his mind. Tall, maybe. Soft hands that didn't know grease but maybe wanted to. A man with expensive shoes and a nervous smile. And somehow, impossibly, Carter was right. It happened during the semi-final match of the Donkey Kong bracket. A glitch in the power line caused the screen to cut out mid-run. The crowd groaned. Tia yelled. Carter crouched and dove under the console with practiced speed, fingers dancing over circuits in the way most people fumbled for words. When the screen blinked back to life with a triumphant chime, the cheers erupted like thunder. Carter stood, wiped his hands on his jeans, and turned and saw him. Standing across the room, near the air hockey table, was a man watching him with quiet admiration. Logan. He had to be. Broad-shouldered but graceful, dressed in pressed slacks and rolled-up sleeves, the kind of shirt that probably cost more than Carter's rent. His shoes were dark and polished, far too clean for this place, but there was a smudge of something, popcorn butter maybe, on the hem of his sleeve that made Carter exhale softly. His undercut was neatly trimmed, but mussed at the top, like he'd run his fingers through it too many times. And behind soft, square glasses, warm green eyes that tracked Carter like he was the only thing worth looking at in the arcade. Carter felt his breath catch. Heat rose under his skin. He turned away too fast and nearly knocked over the pinball machine. Logan didn't approach. He just smiled, soft, almost shy, and leaned against the air hockey table like he belonged there, like he'd been watching all along. Later, when the crowd had thinned and Jonah had been crowned the Final Fighter champion, complete with a glittering prize ticket crown he wore like a goblin king, Carter found a new note waiting for him. This time, tucked into the return tray of the same air hockey table Logan had been standing by. You look good when you're focused. I mean that in a respectful, slightly breathless way. Carter's knees actually buckled. He sat down hard on the bench behind him, note trembling in his hands, the tournament noise still echoing in his ears. His heart was a drum solo. His thoughts were spaghetti. He didn't even notice Tia standing nearby until she snorted. Well, someone's smitten, she said, handing him a bottled soda. You okay there, Romeo? Carter flushed. It's nothing. That's a lie, she said, plopping beside him, and a bad one. He stared at the note, folded it carefully. Then, after a long moment, wrote something on a scrap of receipt paper and shoved it under the joystick of Miss Pac-Man. Just 5 words, you're bold, I'll give you that. They started talking through the machines. Not every night, not every hour, but notes began to appear like footprints. In the ticket booth tray, do you fix everything or just things with wires? Carter replied with, only the things that are worth fixing. In the button drawer of the Frogger console, I keep trying to imagine your voice. I think it's the kind of voice that makes people calm when they hear it. He'd read that one 5 times before daring to write back. Your voice probably sounds expensive. Sometimes he made himself laugh. Sometimes he made himself ache. Sometimes he stared at machines like they were holy places. And each time he saw Logan again, just on the periphery, watching from the shadows, never interfering, always present, he felt more seen than he ever had in his entire life. Then came the woman. Amy. Corporate agent. Her sharp heels clicked across the arcade floor like she was trying to shatter it. She wore all black and carried a sleek binder filled with graphs and branding projections. Carter had no business listening in, but when he heard Logan's voice, quiet but firm, he moved closer. I appreciate the offer, Logan was saying, arms crossed, a frown creasing his otherwise calm face. But I didn't buy this place to gut it. Amy leaned against a console. It's a prime location. Think of what it could be. An esports lounge, streamer booths, LED walls. You could triple your revenue in a year. Logan shook his head. You don't understand. This place isn't about spectacle. It's about belonging. It's about memory. It's about people who don't fit anywhere else finally feeling like they do. Amy sighed. That's romantic and unprofitable. Maybe, Logan said, but it's mine. Carter's chest thudded. Because Logan hadn't sounded like a businessman trying to protect an investment. He sounded like someone trying to protect a heart. That night, the arcade finally quiet again. Carter found a note under the Dig Dug console. I didn't buy this place to change it. I bought it because I didn't want to lose it. Same with you, maybe. Carter sat down slowly, the bench cold under him, yet the golden glow of the prize lights casting gentle shadows over the floor. He didn't write back immediately. Instead, he reached for his phone. And for the first time in weeks, he typed into his contacts. Logan, maybe. He didn't hit call, not yet, but the name sat there on the screen, and it didn't feel like a maybe at all. Chapter 4. Debugging My Heart. Carter's apartment was barely more than a glorified closet with a kitchenette. The walls were lined with shelves overflowing with tangled wires, labeled plastic bins of spare circuit boards, and retro game cartridges that hadn't seen daylight in years. A faded Back to the Future poster hung crookedly above a battered gray couch that slumped in the middle like it had given up years ago. His kitchen table was a repurposed pinball glass top, and the only plant he owned was an aloe vera he forgot to water most days but somehow refused to die. It wasn't much, but it was his, and tonight, for the first time, someone else was here. Logan. He stood just inside the doorway, eyes wide behind his glasses, taking everything in like it was a museum of someone's heart. His dark undercut was slightly windswept from the walk over, sleeves rolled to his elbows, the softest trace of admiration written across his face. It smells like solder and dumplings, he said finally, smiling gently. Carter flushed. Yeah, sorry. I eat like a raccoon. And I was fixing a motherboard. Logan toed off his shiny loafers and stepped onto the mismatched carpet. It's perfect. The unofficial routine had started 3 weeks earlier. Logan never outright said he wanted to see Carter more. He just lingered. After Carter's shifts, Logan would show up like clockwork, standing near the Frogger console, talking to Tia in that calm, reserved tone that made even her pause. He didn't interrupt Carter's work, never hovered, but he stayed. One night, they were both repairing a busted pinball machine in the back, an old Williams Firepower 2 with a warped playfield. Logan had rolled up his sleeves to help lift it onto the dolly, and Carter, tired and sweaty, reached for the same handle. Their hands brushed. Carter froze. Sorry, he muttered, yanking his hand away like it burned. Just, hands are dirty. Logan didn't flinch. He looked down at Carter's calloused fingers, the black smudges on his knuckles, the tiny burn scar near his thumb, and said softly, They're perfect. Carter didn't know how to respond to that. Not then. maybe not even now. So he'd invited him over, not because he had a plan, but because he wanted to see what it would feel like to share the space that held his quieter self. They ate cold dumplings from a takeout box while sitting cross-legged on the floor because Carter didn't own a proper dining chair. Logan didn't complain. He laughed when Carter offered him chopsticks held together by a rubber band. "You know," Logan said around a mouthful of pork and chive, "most people would have thrown that pinball machine away." Carter shrugged. "Most people don't know what can be saved." He didn't mean to say it so bitterly. Logan looked at him, steady and warm. "You do." They watched an old VHS tape next. Blade Runner, grainy and slightly warped from age. Logan rested his head against the side of the couch and murmured, "It's like watching a dream from someone else's mind." Carter chuckled. "That's the best kind of movie." At some point, the couch started feeling too far apart. Logan didn't ask. He just inched closer, shoulder brushing Carter's, breath slowing like he was settling into something he didn't want to leave. Carter stiffened at first, out of habit. He'd been told before, "You're too quiet, too intense, too obsessed with fixing things that don't matter," and the weight of those voices still lingered like smoke. He stared at the flickering screen while Logan leaned gently, delicately into him and rested his head on Carter's shoulder. Not heavy, not needy, just present, like they'd done this 100 times before, like it wasn't new. Carter's chest was tight by the time Logan left, not in a bad way. Not entirely, but in the way that felt like emotion had taken up residence somewhere between his ribs and refused to move out. He stood at the door after Logan disappeared down the hall, heart thudding like a metronome with no conductor. He wanted to tell him everything. About the boy he once loved, who told him being with Carter was exhausting. About the friend who ghosted him when he couldn't explain why he didn't like big parties or crowded rooms. About how sometimes Carter doubted he was meant to be held at all, but he didn't say any of it. He just sat back down on the couch, stared at the last frozen frame of the movie, and felt the lingering heat where Logan had rested against him. The next morning, Carter found a note in his toolbox. It was tucked beneath the wrench he always used to tighten the monitor mounts. Same handwriting, same vintage paper, only this time it was softer, more vulnerable. "I don't want to fix you. I want to sit beside you while you build whatever's next." Carter didn't realize he was crying until the first tear hit the corner of the note. He folded it gently, placed it inside his wallet behind his ID, and whispered into the quiet room, "I think I'm building it already." Later that day, Tia raised an eyebrow when she saw Carter humming while reorganizing wires. "Okay," she said. "Who are you and what have you done with my grumpy tech gremlin?" Carter grinned. "Just a little. Nothing. Just maybe I'm finally playing co-op." Tia blinked, then let out a snort and tossed him a roll of electrical tape. "Well, don't let him steal your extra lives." "I won't." But Carter knew, in his bones, that if Logan asked, he'd share every single one. Chapter 5. The Tilt. It was the scent of lemon oil and faint cologne that tipped Carter off. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not in this hallway, not this deep into the arcade's old staff wing, and definitely not in the room he was currently pushing open. But the Tempest cabinet had short-circuited again, and Tia had offhandedly said, "Check the breaker upstairs. Logan has a panel behind his office," without specifying that his office wasn't just a storage closet like Carter assumed. The door wasn't locked. It eased open with a soft click. The room was clean, warm, too quiet. Sunlight filtered in through tall windows, softened by sheer curtains that fluttered in the breeze from a nearby vent. A long wooden desk dominated the space. Cluttered, yes, but intentionally so. A half-built arcade cabinet stood in the corner next to a rolled-up rug and unopened mail. Framed blueprints lined one wall. But what stopped Carter, what froze him in the doorway, was what he saw directly across from the desk. A wall of corkboard, lined with papers. His papers. Carter stepped in slowly, heart thudding unevenly. The boards were filled with repair reports. His handwriting, his diagrams, his schematics. Torn post-it notes. A cartoon doodle of Frogger he'd drawn on a napkin and tossed aside. Even a crumpled list of his favorite machines that he'd scrawled one sleepy afternoon during inventory. And there, in the center, pinned carefully in a frame like it mattered, was a photo of him. Not posed, not aware. just a moment captured. Carter on his knees, fixing the claw machine, hair falling into his eyes, the soft glow of the arcade lighting the smudge on his cheek. He didn't even remember anyone taking it. His fingers curled into his palms. What was this? Admiration? Obsession? Something in between? He didn't hear the footsteps behind him until it was too late. I meant to show you, Logan said quietly from the doorway, his voice low and calm. Eventually. Carter turned slowly. Logan stood there in a deep green sweater and dark jeans, sleeves bunched at the elbows, hair slightly tousled like he'd been running a hand through it nonstop. The same man who wrote poetry on snack wrappers and sipped cocoa from vintage thermoses now stood like someone on the verge of confession. Carter started, then stopped. His throat felt tight. Logan stepped in but didn't come closer. It's not what it looks like. It looks like you've been keeping me, Carter said, voice sharper than he intended. Like I'm some sort of project. Logan flinched. You're not anything like that. He exhaled. I noticed things. I collected them because I didn't want to forget. I didn't want you to forget how much of this place is because of you. Carter's jaw clenched. But why me? Out of everyone? The room went still. The arcade hummed distantly beneath them like a memory. Logan's gaze softened. Because you care about things no one sees. Because you make old things work again. Because when something breaks, you listen. You don't walk away. You kneel down, and you touch it gently and say, I can fix this. Carter felt something collapse inside him, quietly, like a dying star folding in on itself. Logan took another step forward. And I think, he said, voice barely above a whisper, I've been trying to do the same with myself. There was silence, then breath, then movement. Carter crossed the room in 3 unthinking steps and kissed him. It wasn't soft at first. It was desperate. A gasp against lips that felt too real, too close, too long overdue. Logan responded immediately, like he'd been waiting, burning, aching for it. His hand slid up to Carter's jaw, gentle and grounding, and Carter leaned into him like gravity itself had shifted. Their mouths moved in sync, slow and clumsy, mouths parting just enough for teeth to graze lips, breath catching between them in uneven bursts. Carter let out a noise, small and broken, when Logan's hand curved against the back of his neck. This wasn't a kiss of curiosity. It was recognition. They'd been kissing through ink and paper for weeks, through notes and glances and the sound of each other's laughter shared across time-stained machines. This was just the culmination. The truth made touch. Carter pulled back first, eyes wide, lips swollen, breath ragged. Logan stared at him like he was trying to memorize everything. But he didn't press. He didn't move again. He just smiled, barely, and said, I want you, all of you, but only if it feels safe. And for once it did. Carter nodded. I think it does. Then, because words were never his strength, he curled his fingers into Logan's sweater, and they stood together like that, tangled and warm in a room full of memories, while the arcade below buzzed softly on. Chapter 6. Final level no continues. The arcade always felt different after hours. No tokens clinking, no screaming kids, no whirring fans on overdrive, just the soft hum of idling machines and the faded crackle of the jukebox playing something old and a little off-key. The neon glow painted the walls in quiet color, pink against Carter's hoodie, deep blue on Logan's sleeves. It was the kind of silence that didn't beg to be filled, the kind you could fall into and feel safe. Carter leaned against the Pac-Man machine, wiping a fingerprint smudge off the screen, more out of habit than necessity. Logan sat cross-legged on the carpet nearby, elbow deep in a snack bag, offering up cheesy puffs with an open palm and a smirk that made Carter's stomach twist every damn time. You're stalling, Logan said, chuckling as he popped another puff in his mouth. I'm fixing, Carter replied, though the machine was already in perfect condition. He looked down at Logan, his heart warm in a way he didn't have words for. And I like stalling, with you. They'd been like this for weeks now, flirting out loud instead of through scribbled notes, trading repair techniques and taste-tested dumpling fillings, playing co-op on neglected machines in the dead of night while sharing lukewarm sodas and kisses between levels. And Logan? Logan had become part of the arcade in the same way Carter was, not because he bought it, but because he belonged now. I'm moving in upstairs, Logan said suddenly, voice soft over the jukebox. Carter blinked, heart skipping. Wait, you're serious? Completely. I signed the lease on the loft above the back wing. Logan stood and brushed off his pants. It's dusty, full of old game manuals and ceiling leaks, but it's real, and it's here, with you. Carter didn't say anything at first. He just nodded, too full of something tender and sharp to speak. Because for the first time in his life, someone wasn't just visiting his world. They were choosing to live in it. Tia had noticed, of course. She teased them relentlessly. I better get an invite to your wedding, she'd said last week, waving a soda can at them. You two share more looks than my exes shared excuses. Even Jonah had started calling them Team Fix-It, announcing it like a sports brand every time they walked into the same room. RetroCon's next month, Jonah had said that morning, balancing a slice of pizza on his knee. Join my crew. We're doing a tournament bracket and a panel on preservation. Carter had said no at first. Crowds, cameras, public attention? Absolutely not. But then Logan had looked at him, just looked, and Carter had found himself mumbling, "Okay, maybe, if you're there." Logan's smile had lit him up from the inside out. Tonight, the arcade was theirs again. They'd stayed behind after closing, cleaning up after the Friday rush. Carter had been drawn, as always, to his favorite machine, Frogger. It was tucked into a back corner like a forgotten relic, dusty but stubborn, never asking for attention unless it needed something vital. Carter liked it for exactly that reason. He slipped in a quarter, one of the vintage ones he kept in his pocket just for this cabinet, and the machine hummed to life. But instead of the familiar blip of the startup sound, he heard a soft crinkle. His brows furrowed. He reached into the coin return and pulled out a folded piece of thick cream paper. Logan's handwriting. His heart did a somersault before he even opened it. I think I've been waiting for someone like you, someone who knows how to fix things, without even trying. Carter's breath caught. He turned slowly. Logan was standing behind him, not hidden, not distant, just there, watching him, waiting. Carter stepped forward, the note still clenched in his fingers. He didn't speak. Neither did Logan. They didn't have to. Their mouths met in a kiss that started slow and ended fierce. It was the kind of kiss that pressed time to the edges of the room, left no space for doubt, no breath for hesitation. Carter's hands curled into Logan's shirt, and Logan kissed like he'd been dreaming of it, memorizing every sigh, every tilt of Carter's mouth, every inch of space between them, and closing it. It was hungry, but smiling. It was heat and promise, longing wrapped in safety. They kissed again and again. Logan's hand cradled Carter's jaw, thumb tracing along his cheekbone, grounding him. Carter exhaled shakily, fingers tugging at the hem of Logan's sweater, and for a moment, neither of them could speak. Logan pressed his forehead against Carter's. "Come upstairs with me." The loft was warm, not in temperature, but in light. Neon from the arcade below filtered in through tall windows, casting quiet colors across the hardwood floor. Logan had started unpacking, books stacked in uneven towers, a half-built bed frame in the corner, a record player spinning something low and soft. Carter's hoodie hit the floor somewhere near the couch. He wasn't sure how it happened, if it was the music, the note, the way Logan looked at him like he mattered. But suddenly they were kissing again, slower now, deep and steady. Logan touched him like he was art, like Carter's hands were more than tools, like they were worthy. He kissed every knuckle, every scar, every calloused patch of skin like it told a story. "You're beautiful," he whispered against Carter's shoulder, and Carter didn't flinch this time. He just closed his eyes and leaned into the warmth. They didn't rush. There were no fireworks, no dramatic gasps, just soft laughter, fingers exploring, quiet breaths between kisses. The weight of Logan's chest pressing Carter down against the blankets in a way that didn't trap, but held. Every movement said, "I see you," and Carter believed it, for the first time. Later, they lay tangled in the sheets, legs draped over each other, the glow from the Frogger cabinet still faintly visible through the loft's open window. Logan traced patterns along Carter's bare shoulder, his voice sleepy and content. "This is the best glitch I've ever found." Carter smiled into his neck, eyes half closed, more like a bonus level. They lay in silence for a while. Carter's fingers found Logan's, intertwined them. He looked over, heart full, voice soft. "You know," he said, "you didn't fix me." Logan looked at him, calm and open. "I didn't want to." Carter leaned in, kissed him again, slow and sweet, the kind that tasted like trust. then whispered against his lips, "He wasn't broken. He was just waiting for someone to press start."